Namaste and welcome to Satsang today. So today we want to spend some time in this Satsang talking about something which is perhaps just as fundamental and important as discovering who we really are, which is if our awakening is a coin and there's two sides to that coin, one side of that would be to see clearer who we really are, to experience it, to experience our own formlessness, our own emptiness, vastness, that there is only one of us here, and that ultimately that everything we think we see and experience is made of this formless nothingness appearing to be something. And the other side of that coin then would be to see what we're not, to see, to be willing to see at least how we are still holding together, unknowingly, of course, the illusion of separation in our thought structure. Because as I discovered, as I guess most people are discovering, having a seeing of who we really are, a direct experience and knowing of who we really are, whether that's through self-inquiry or just spontaneous insight, then it doesn't necessarily mean that our thought structure is going to change. In fact, it's quite surprising to me that it didn't change upon seeing it. It started to change, but we can work with that much, much faster. So today we're going to look at, again, look at this most vital subject of how we think still in duality. So there's only one being that is infinite and everywhere at all times. And it is showing up as all of this. And will continue to show up as all of this forever. And yet, for most of us, when we come to realize who we are, it's only a glimpse, it's only a momentary seeing. Or we haven't had a glimpse at all, and we're trying to make that happen. But that truth, that realization, that direct seeing might be trying to break through a thought structure that is very much still locked in duality, in two-ness. So even logically, mentally, we can perhaps understand that if we're thinking in terms of two, it's going to be very hard to embody and live as the one. And much to my desperation and frustration and anger, it took me a long time to figure out how I was thinking in two-ness, in duality. And that's what I want to look at today, to hopefully shortcut it for you, for just making it clearer, drawing it into the light. So most of us still go about thinking in the world, even about our awakening, in terms of duality, two things, cause and effect, or causality, as sometimes I've called it, causality thinking. And it's an idea that is so pervasive in the human consciousness that it really doesn't even seem important to question the way that we think in this way until it becomes extraordinarily painful along the pathway. So cause and effect is the idea that one thing can affect something else, or one thing can affect another thing. And it's so locked into and rigidly in our thought structure. But if we can sort of bring some attention to it, some awareness to it, begin to allow it to dissolve. So let's put this into some practical use. So if you think about now, if you just take a moment to think about the problem that you're having at the moment, any particular challenge that's coming up for you right now, just take a moment to bring that to mind. And if you can't think of one right now, think of one you had in the past. Think of a karmic pattern or a samskara vasana that you are experiencing right now. And notice, if you can, the sense that something is causing something else. So let me put it in practical terms. For me, it was this idea that lack of financial abundance was causing me to feel fear, or lack of being able to communicate effectively with my child was making me feel unworthy, or lack of being able to see the truth is making me suffer. And these ideas are so fundamental. If we see something in our outside world, in our experience with our five senses, we might really believe that that outside experience is causing some effect in here. The cause is out there and the effect is in here. This thing happened and it made me scared, made me angry, made me feel ashamed. Something somebody said made me feel ashamed. So the cause is out there and the effect is in here. And we subscribe to this without realizing so much. It's all over our thought structure when we look. The good news is it makes it easier to let go of. We don't have to examine all of our thoughts or karmic patterns. We can just begin to see that what's holding them in place is this separation, division, that we actually believe and something can affect something else. And we might even have it backwards as well. We might even think, because I'm not good enough inside, cause, I can't get my outside world to change, effect. When I'm awakened enough, good enough, calm enough, fill in the blank, whatever our version of that is, then my finances will flow, or my children will do the dishes when I ask them to, or whatever it is that we're trying to make happen in the world. And why it's important to really understand this cause and effect thinking is because if I believe I'm scared because of this thing happening in the outside world, firstly, I'm in division and I'm going to feel terrible. Suffering is really only imagining a division where there isn't one. So the fear and the money are one and the same thing, showing up two different ways. One as an emotional vibration, one as a physical object, or lack of a physical object in this case. And the child that I'm trying to communicate with and the emotion that seems to arise because of it, apparently, are one and the same thing. So each karmic pattern is really one thing showing up three different ways. A subtle belief that we're not currently aware of, an emotion that corresponds to that, and an outer world experience, either in our finances, our family, our career, our body, as an illness or something like that. And it goes right through our thought process. And we can have the most profound seeing. We could do some self-inquiry right now, come to see that we're not actually a separate being. And then 2 minutes later, we're frustrated, angry, feeling ashamed or something because of some believed cause. So generally speaking, our emotional state is believed to be the effect, and the cause is something else, someone else. Even we do this subtly, like my mind is driving me nuts. I can't get my mind to stop, therefore I feel whatever it is, whatever emotion's going on. And even this is a subtle division there between cause and effect. So when we don't see this cause and effect thinking, the major tendency to divide our world, our experience into the cause and the effect. And we really believe that they're two different things. Even when we've seen quite a few times, for me, it took a little while to realize that what was happening was I was going back to thinking in two-ness after seeing oneness, formless, infinite awareness being everywhere. And while we don't realize this is what's going on, we spend all of our time and energy trying to, even deeply down the pathway, trying to change the cause. So if I get more money, if I can pay my bills, I won't be afraid. And of course, it's okay to want more money. But if we're holding that in separation, then it's going to be hard for us to allow in that abundance. If we're still feeling divided in any way at all, it's going to be hard for our life to flow in the way that we want. So as we come to understand this, we can stop spending so much time and energy trying to change the cause so that we have a better effect in here. Peace isn't when we get all our outer world to look a certain way, or even our inner world, thoughts, emotions, and feelings. Peace is the recognition of the undivided, infinite self, capital S. Undivided and invisible. Indivisible, rather. Well, invisible too. Indivisible. So not ever able to be divided. Not the sum of all its parts. Not two that's merged back into one. Not a separate self and the infinite self. Literally only the infinite self. And we can get that and see that and see that. But then for most of us in our thought structure, we go back to thinking in terms of cause and effect. And that's why, for a lot of beings, as we progress deeper on the pathway, we'll find our karmic patterns resurfacing, re-emerging, perhaps coming back stronger than ever. And if we don't understand why that's happening, it can lead to a lot of self-blame, even self-hatred. We're not seeing these patterns emerge stronger, feeling more fear, more shame, etc., because we're doing something wrong. It's just that this thing has to show us where we're still thinking in terms of duality and two-ness. So what is the way out of it then? How do we come out of cause and effect thinking? Well, first of all, we can just be willing to see the very next problem that your mind presents you with. If there are two things, two beings, or two things, two objects, even the subtle objects like time, the lack of time makes me frustrated, cause and effect. If there's two in that problem, it cannot be true. And it cannot be resolved from the place where there seems to be two. It can only come to recognize that the emotion, the effect in here, and the imagined cause of that are really one and the same thing, showing up two different ways. So just like water can show up as ice or liquid water or steam, we can have a thought, I'm not safe, which shows up as fear in the body when it's given a lot of attention. Fear is just a name for a label for a particular vibration. And then it will also reflect as some kind of physical issue in the physical realm. So the way then is, the way out of that then is to discover what the idea is at the root. You can't change the outer effect in the world, the seeming cause. You can't change that. If we could, we would have done that by now, right? It's hard to change a cause in the outside world when there really isn't an outside world. And while we're trying to change out there to make us feel different in here, it's got to fail somehow, isn't it? Because I'm emphasizing that division. And what most of us do on the path is we flip that over. I really try to change in here so that out there will be better, different, more abundant. So as we begin to recognize the outer world experience, we literally cannot change. We might resolve it temporarily, but it'll have to pop back up again with the same person or a different person or a different thing. Life is wonderfully abundant at examples and opportunities to transcend these things, whether we like it or not. And we can't change the emotion. We can only be with it in its fullness. You can only allow it to exist. And that's easier to do when we recognize it's only a reflection. This feeling is only a reflection of an idea that's not been seen as yet. Nothing can be hidden from us in our unconscious or subconscious mind. Subconscious just means we haven't seen it yet. So because I'm so thoroughly believing that I'm scared because of this thing, it hasn't occurred to me to go backwards a little bit into the thought that's reflecting as the emotion. And for quite some time, I might have been trying to change in here or out there. So as we see instead, maybe this fear is showing me an idea that I subscribed to massively that seemed to be true when I thought I was a separate being. And now as the seeing of who I really am is getting clearer, it's easier and easier to see these ideas don't apply to me, the infinite self. Common ideas for me were, I'm not safe, I'm in danger, as I've said, and that reflected as fear and lack of finances and 100 million billion other ways, which would be a very long, boring hour description. But I'm sure you've had your own version of I'm not safe showing up. I can't get what I want. The fundamental experience of a separate, limited being is to feel limited, separate, cut off from what it seems to want and need. And haven't we all experienced that, whether what we want is enough money or awakening or everything in between? I'm not good enough was the other major player, as I'm sure it is for most of us. And that reflects as guilt and whatever corresponding experience. And there is a slower, lower version of guilt, which we could call shame, which for me was I don't deserve to exist, don't deserve to be happy, definitely. And that showed up as shame and lots of things to be ashamed about, a body that's overweight and so on and so on. But I'm not ashamed of the state of my body. There's just shame and a body that is a blank canvas that has to reflect, that's offered to serve us by reflecting what idea we're still subscribing to. So coming to recognize who we really are, does that apply to who you really are? That which created the cosmos and sustains it, the apparent cosmos. Does it deserve to exist? Is it true that you're not safe then? Now, we've all had 100 million experiences of literally not being safe, not having what we want and need, not feeling good enough, not feeling deserving of anything. But and those seem very, very true to the separate being who keeps living its own projections as my life, my thoughts that I'm still subscribing to are so believed that I don't even know I'm believing them, because they're locked away in this filing cabinet inside the mind that says, do not question these thoughts because they are so true. I keep experiencing them, therefore I keep believing, and therefore I keep experiencing, and around it goes. And you cannot really come out of that effectively while you're believing in cause and effect being two separate things. Money and fear seem like two different things. I can pick up money in my hand, coins and notes, or I can look at the banking app on my phone. Can't pick up fear, but I can certainly notice it, feel it. But could they actually be the same thing? And therefore, can you do anything about money to get rid of the fear or anger or whatever? Anger is like, it's reflecting to us this sense of feeling totally disempowered, limited, separate. So just to come to recognize that this is the way that we're still thinking without blame, and that for most beings, it's only happened once or twice in the entire history of forever, that realization of who we really are, enlightenment, awakening, has actually resulted in a spontaneous demolishing of all of our thought structure. For most of us, it's this two-sided coin of seeing who we really are, and then, no, that doesn't apply to me anymore. I can put that over there. And this idea isn't true for me, and actually has never been. I'm not safe. As a separate, limited being, imagining myself to be one, of course I'm not going to feel safe, because I think I'm going to die at some point. And I think there's all these other beings and things, even fear and other emotions, that can affect me. Instead of those other beings and other things just being ways that I'm showing up in my infinite nature. So instead of trying to, or blaming yourself for these karmic patterns re-emerging and resurfacing with quite more ferocity and intensity than you might have experienced before, let's not tell ourselves we're doing something wrong in that. Maybe we're doing something very right when they're coming up with this intensity. It doesn't feel right. But it's because we're succeeding at awakening that this cause and effect thinking isn't really working for us anymore. It never really did. It just wasn't so far out of alignment with the rest of our being while we thought we were separate and limited. So can we re-embrace what comes up for us in the next moment, the next day, the next week, with a gentle curiosity? Where am I still entertaining cause and effect? And what happens when I realize that the cause and the effect are the same thing? That there are two ways that this formless, infinite self is manifesting. And that even as we begin to realize this, we might feel some division, artificial division, that has lowered the life force in the body, beginning to heal. Fear is not a real state, neither is shame or anger or frustration, impatience, apathy, despair, jealousy. Any negative emotion you can put in there. It's not a real thing in and of itself. It's just how the body feels. It's a label for a vibration, how the body feels when we're believing in division, two-ness. And you can kind of tell by how bad the body feels, just how much we're insisting on this division still inside. If we're a little irritated, it's there, but it's not troubling so much. If we're totally apathetic, despairing, or in deep grief, then there's a real sense of division being bought into in that moment. Again, without self-blame, without judgment of ourselves. Nobody ever taught us to think differently. And there is this very pervasive spiritual myth that a clear seeing of who I really am is enough to smash through all of this. But the force and momentum of the habits of the way we think in duality and two-ness still remain. For most of us, we need to go into an experience of who we really are, either in self-inquiry or in temporary samadhi and meditation, again and again and again and again. And that begins to overwrite the existing thought structure with new thoughts that might be able to be possible, such as maybe the cause isn't different to the effect, or maybe there's no reason for my fear in the external world. Maybe there's just fear. These thoughts are liberating because then we can start to work with them. So I wanted to take some time to explain this today, perhaps open up some clearer seeing. And next satsang, so this is kind of a two-parter because I don't, if we do it all in one, it would be too squashed and rushed. I want to do some next time some live guided contemplation, which is a way of gently questioning the idea that's reflecting as the emotion and the experience. So we question, is it true I'm not safe? Is it true I don't deserve to exist? Because when we question, we can't be believing in this cause and effect loop anymore. We're either believing this thought or we're questioning it. And we only have to question it long enough that the old way of thinking dies. The old neural pathways atrophy and wither away, and new ones are being developed as we question. And over 30 days, consistent questioning every time it arises, then no karmic pattern is older than 30. They don't really exist at all because you are already free. But imagining you are caught, it is only 30 days old. That's how long it takes to form a new way of thinking. So we'll go into that next satsang, but I wanted to spend some time here really explaining that. And we'll do some live examples of how to come out of cause and effect thinking. Because if we can realize that we're not suffering for the reason we think we are, we're not suffering because of something out there or something in here, that we're suffering only because we keep dividing ourselves and trying to fix a non-existent cause. And if the cause is non-existent, so is the effect. Or if you like it said better this way, the cause and the effect are the same thing, the same infinite self showing up. And all of this may sound, for me, when I first started to get this, it was utterly confusing, and my mind threw up a whole lot of resistance. And everyone I talk to about this says, I really do not understand this cause and effect stuff. I just cannot wrap my head around it. And that's only because there's so much division, cause and effect believed in by us, that our life force is so low, our energy is generally so low. It costs us so much energy to keep investing in something that isn't true, that it's hard to get to that place of clarity to see clearly when so much life force is being used up. So what do? We contemplate anyway. And as we apply this and come out of cause and effect thinking, we will free up this life force, which will then be able to hang out as peace and joy and love and all of that. Perhaps most importantly, we'll begin to feel very much empowered, because if I really am at the effect of something out there in the world, there's nothing I can do about it. Nothing. But if I am the thing out there and the effect in here, then that's a very different place to kind of hang out from. So next week in Satsang, we will do some live examples of this, of how to go from the cause and effect thinking to find the emotion, to find the limiting idea, belief, and to question it, to come out of it. Okay, so I have two questions here that have been sent in. Open it up for questions live here. If you want to raise your hand, you can, about what I've said today or anything. We'll take a maximum of 5 people online. I'll read this question here. Hi, Helen. Thank you so much for your teachings. Excuse me. I really benefit so much from them, having previously asked 2 questions which you answered in depth and which gave me more clarity about who I am. However, one thought that keeps arising when I do self-inquiry is this: how do I know I'm not a separate self inside my body when I can't actually see inside my body? I know there is a presence here that is looking for it, but if I can't see through my skin or muscles, etc., then how can I be sure I'm not separate? Despite asking this question, I've had a number of seeings now where I have known I am awareness and not a separate self. And this feels so liberating, as I know this frees me from all karmic patterns and needing to be a someone. But I feel this need to question, I feel I need this question answered as it keeps coming up, and I can't seem to be able to convince myself that I'm not a separate being. Thank you so much, Helen. So when I started to do self-inquiry, there were deeper and deeper seeings like this. But then these doubts will come up like this. But how do I actually know I'm not going to die? Or how do I actually know I've always been here? It wasn't a question at first. It was an idea like, you're never going to know that you won't die. So these questions were started off as doubts. And I came to see in time that they're actually my mind asking me to help, because it wants to explore who I really am from every aspect and to realize everything that that means. And here is your mind asking you for a little help in looking at this. And I'm really glad, therefore, you've asked it, because as we embrace these things, they can be released. All the energy that we've had tied up in that doubt is freed up back into life force. So how do you know, if you can't see inside your body and mind, that you're not a separate self? Well, you can't really prove it that way. You can prove it, though, from the exploration of who you actually are. So when you look for yourself, you find, and you use the word presence here, there's a presence that is you. And if you look at what that presence is, it's not a separate being. It's not a someone. Most importantly, it's not an object. It's not a limited thing. It doesn't have an object has a shape. Even the greatest object of all, which is the universe, it's a kind of a huge object, right? Infinite object, right down to a cup of tea or a human body. And if you are not an object, this presence, is it a thing that you can hold and touch and grasp? Does it have any flavor, color, texture, any of that? And when you look at that, you'll see that presence is intangible and insubstantial, and is boundaryless, has no edges because it has no shape. What does that mean? It means it's right inside the body and outside the body. In fact, the body is appearing in it rather than it in the body. It feels like it's in the body as well, because it is. So proving to yourself that this presence that is your real nature has no edges. You become clear that it's everywhere. Inside the body, outside the body, therefore there's no room for a separate being. There's only this presence showing up. So in a way, you can see inside the body. You know what the body is made of when you see that its presence is infinite and everywhere, and there can be no gaps in it, no holes in it, H-O-L-E, no division in it. It's indivisible, right, this presence. It's like trying to divide the space in the room. It's just not possible. So how can we divide our own infinite formlessness into me and a separate self? So have a ponder with that and explore, and you'll be able to prove to yourself by checking out who you really are that there isn't a separate self in there. Okay, so we'll go to the hands up online. We'll start with hands.
Okay. Hi, Helen. I heard very well that you say next week you're going to come back on this subject, but it's so crazy that I just have something which has really to do with it, and I really want to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, for years already I have a problem with the prostate, and some weeks ago I went to see a specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he found that there is a benign growth, and he could avoid operation, but I have to take some medication.
Mm-hmm.
And I opened the package and I saw there was a very long list with side effects.
Terrifying list of
Terrifying list. And I said, I'm not going to read that because otherwise this will influence me. I just saw one, and that is getting very tired.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm now taking this medication for 2 weeks and a half, and I really feel exhausted. It's like oh my God, if this has, and I have to take it for 3 months, is this going to continue? Where I'm going to end? Do I have to stop with this and to believe it? I can heal it on myself. And already the questions you said, or the things you said, I can't get what I want, is really resonating. And even more, is it true I don't deserve a good health? I asked myself while you were talking. Oh yes, this is very true, because my energy level is already for more than 15 years an issue with me. But of course, here I immediately saw the link between the medication.
I'm using my experience to justify continuing to subscribe to this thing, right? But my experience is a reflection of this belief. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
do you have any proof at all that you don't deserve to have good health? To answer that, you'd have to point to an experience, a repeated experience of less than perfect health, which is only a mirror image of this idea being subscribed to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And isn't it not funny, hilarious? I mean, funny as in strange, that you experience the one side effect that you read on the app, the one that you actually read on the thing.
It is. That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, when I had to start taking some medication, this came up for me as well. There was oh my goodness, I really don't want to read this long thing, and knowing what my mind would do with it. So I really set about asking what the medication actually is. There's a real belief that this thing out there can affect my body in here. And I came to see that medication is also the infinite formlessness appearing as this medicine. And with that, with that kind of seeing, we can mitigate the worst effects of it and enhance the best effects of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And yeah, first thing arises, how? Um,
How what?
how to use this, how to do this, how to
So,
change this.
so if we just ask this question, what actually is this medication? Let's ask it together. What actually is it? We think we know what it is, right? It's a little pill I put in my hand, or I take it with water or whatever. What actually is it?
It's a strange first thing coming up, because when I take it now, I already stay with it for some minutes, saying that it will only have the good effects and there are no negative effects, and this will help me to resolve the issue. So in fact, when I'm doing that, I'm already believing that this medication is not going to do anything and I have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm doing now, and while you ask this question, is this what I'm seeing now? Perhaps this medication has no effect at all, even not a positive effect, and it's me who has to change this benign growth. I don't know, but that's the first thing coming up.
Can you see what you said there is very insightful? Can you see that in what you've just said, the medication and you are two separate things?
Yeah. It's
Sneaky,
very,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
sneaky.
Okay.
So if the medicine isn't going to work, I've got to fix it. Or, there's still a division in there and it's very subtle. But if the body and the medication and the thoughts about it and even the water you take it with are all just ways that you're showing up, that's a kind of a different place to hang out, right? These are all just appearances in me. This body, this medication, everything. The thoughts about it. Then we come to a realization fairly quickly that I've never actually experienced the medication. I've only experienced my thoughts about it.
Mm-hmm.
And can it really work from there so well? If I really don't know what this medication is, or if I know it is my own self showing up a different way, then whatever's supposed to unfold, the highest possible unfolding, is able to occur.
I see it, and of course there's something immediately coming in. It's like there is a fear not to take it.
Yeah.
Um,
Again, that fear or that strategizing what to do about it is based on the idea that it's different from you.
mm-hmm.
See how pervasive this way of thinking is in our thought structure. And again, no blame. We're not blaming ourselves. We're just noticing, wow, this is a really strong habit to think this way. Even the question, should I take it or not? And I'm not advocating either. I'm just staying out of that completely. All forms of healing have their place, but the whole should I, shouldn't I thing is based on this idea. Firstly, that there's someone who could choose, a separate being who could choose, and that the medication is actually outside of me and I'm going to take it inside somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So just being willing to hang out at that division point and go, well, is that really actually so? Can I actually prove that this is not me, not even my body,
Mm-hmm.
And from there, in the undivided place of the self, the body is protected and cushioned from the worst of effects, the lower vibrations, wherever we find them in the world, from many things, not just medicines and things like that. just noticing, kind of coming out a little bit and going, every time I think about this subject, it's in two-ness. So just kind of hanging out there, not trying to do anything about it, just going, wow. Every time I move forward in thoughts, it goes into separation. And very quickly, just you'll see something start to resolve inside. The body is reflecting back to us that there's some division we're still buying into, which we call illness and disease and stuff like that, you know, but it's really just a lowered life force energy because the amount it takes to sustain this artificial division.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you what to do with this, but I can tell you what to see with this, right?
Yeah. No, okay. I think I have enough information to go further with it and to do some more contemplation essentially on this each time I take it and I see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Just watch the thoughts as they come up, go, wow, here we are again. It's just a freight train of habits steaming down the thought, you know, the track, and just to watch it and go, wow, I automatically go into division around this subject, and then you'll start to come out of it.
Okay. I see. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maitreya?
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
Firstly, I just want to say thank you. The talk that you gave on cause and effect thinking, yeah, there's a few things that just landed in me and clicked. So I appreciate the clarity.
Thank you.
There's two things for me that come up around this. So maybe I'll just start with the first one, and if there's time, talk about the second. But the first one was a situation in my business. I run an accounting business, and one of my clients is being audited at the moment. And I noticed that brings up a lot of stress for me and fear. There's stress of the audit going badly, fear of my client losing money, fear of me possibly losing reputation or money. Yeah, so I guess I'll just stop there, but noticing the duality of the thinking in that situation.
You see this idea that something happening in your outside world can affect how you feel inside. Yeah.
Yes.
Because you could go through that audit in a number, you could experience that in a number of different ways, couldn't you? You could experience it as being very stressful, exhausting, or you could experience it as like, well, it just got done. So what's the determining factor between those two? It's really our sort of state of consciousness, isn't it, when we're approaching something? So if I'm believing in something being able to affect me, then I'll keep experiencing being affected.
Yeah. I find it very difficult to get my head around. Like, I was listening to you talk to the previous man, Hans, I think, about the medication and him not really being separate. And I was like, oh yeah, I can see that. But then, and I can sort of see what you're pointing to, but to think that the audit and me are one thing, and the audit's not affecting the way I feel, it's just like, I don't know, I get to a certain point and I'm like, I can't seem to follow.
So totally normal. And nobody understands this until after they've applied it. So there seems to be a physical event, an audit. There seems to be an emotional event inside. What name would you put to that? When we say
Fear.
fear, yeah. So if fear could speak to you, what would it say? How does it feel about what's its attitude? What would be the message it wanted to give you?
I could lose financial security in this process.
Let's detach it from the outer thing. And let's just feel that look at the fear itself, not fear because of, just fear. As if fear was a person you were just shaking hands with a meeting. And what's the fundamental message of fear?
There's something bad that can happen.
Yeah. Some variation of I'm in danger or I'm not safe, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So we can't change the fear, we can't change the audit. Lord knows we would if we could, but we can look at this belief. Is it true something bad can happen? We can question that. We've experienced it as being extraordinarily true, as unpleasant audits, financial disturbances, relationship troubles, everything, right? But just staying with this question, is it actually true something bad can happen to me?
Not as awareness, no.
So just noticing then, if awareness is all there is, why do we go back to this idea with such allegiance? So much do we subscribe to these ideas that they really felt in the body and then show up also externally. Just noticing the force of habit too. And here it is right here, right? You and I recorded that wonderful interview, which is going to come out on the channel on Monday. We had this beautiful seeing. And then we go back to the old thought structure of thinking in two-ness. It's totally, totally normal. So just to kind of recognize, like we were saying with Hans, wow, I've just gone back into, without realizing, this same old thought structure.
Yeah, that's true.
So the moment I come out of satsang or meditation or whatever, I've somehow unconsciously, when I get up from the meditation seat, resubscribe to the idea that something can affect me from the outside.
So there's almost this insight that comes up for me now that's like nothing can touch me. And if I can hold on to that insight, nothing can touch me, then it's like a safeguard against fear or something like that.
Absolutely. Nothing can touch me as the infinite self. You
Yeah.
keep proving that to yourself again and again and again. And in the next seeing that comes from that is there is nothing that's not me.
Yeah.
It becomes clearer and clearer. This belief that this thing is outside of me, separate to me, gives it a kind of reality of its own that it doesn't really have. Other beings, other things, even things like fear, right? It seems to have a life of its own and keeps coming to visit whether we want it or not. That's where you feel called to kind of hang out in that seeing. That's
I do. That's pretty powerful. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you. We'll go to John when you're ready, John.
Yeah, talk about health and things like that. It's been an ongoing issue for me as well. So,
yeah,
and having had to go to the hospital because I had a urine infection. And same thing happened with me in a way about the taking the tablets and seeing them as separate from me, kind of, you know. I get glimpses, you know, that I can be with all this fear and this pain that goes with having this illness.
Does it go with having this illness, or could this illness be a reflection of this pain and fear? I know it might not seem so relevant what I just said, but it's actually fundamental to helping the body heal. If I feel that emotional pain and suffering has to go along with physical pain and suffering, I'm actually dividing those two things as being separate inside myself. And I'm actually giving cause and effect. The state of the body, the condition of the body is causing this emotion inside, this suffering, this pain.
Yeah.
Just even to see that, and not to blame ourselves for the habitual momentum we have in the way that we think. You know, nobody ever pulls you aside at high school and says, let's talk about how to think as the oneness. You know, it just doesn't happen, does it? So
No.
If it did, it would be a different world, but
right.
The rest of the world is generally agreeing with our illusions.
Yeah.
That one thing can cause another. And then we
I think
desperately try to change the state of the body in order to feel better, and it's impossible.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I got really what you were saying that deeply, but for me, what came up was having this life had no security, and so insecurity, and no love and all that, you know. And I got this notion in my head, you know, which is probably, I don't know, maybe quite true. If you're secure inside, there's really only what's happening. And all these habits, even then, they may fall away, but I can see if that was seen clearly, and it was put down, a lot of this rubbish would just disappear by itself, kind of.
Yeah.
So I do the contemplations and that, you know. And it's like you get to an edge sometimes when you see the truth, and then the mind and thought just pulls you up. No, you know, no. If that was true, what would it be like? And it pulls you back to that there's a possibility.
Possibility of what?
Of being still, literally, to be able to be still, to not fight with my experience.
Yeah.
You know, which I can do in meditation, but I'd like to know at that deeper level, inside, probably. You know?
Yeah.
It's difficult because, Christ, being
But
up that hospital.
Each time you see something like this, you said, I don't know if I've seen it clearly. I think I'm paraphrasing, but maybe you've seen it clearer than you ever have. And next time will be even clearer.
Yeah.
I wasted so much time and energy trying to have the final seeing, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's very frustrating, endless. Yeah.
Yeah.
Today, for me today, my seeing has been even clearer than it was yesterday, and tomorrow it will be even clearer than that, and it will go on forever. So we can celebrate what we have realized already, what we've seen even clearer. And whether you realize it or not, you saw something very profound here when we were talking, and that has and will bear fruit. Mind is never going to kind of understand this cause and effect stuff. It'll go, what? My mind, if I tried to get my mind to explain it, it would still be, I don't know, sounds like a lot of nonsense. But so I just learned not to rely on
put
that
some
so
of that in
much.
the post, please.
Yeah, exactly. So don't worry if there's confusion about what I've said. I'd be surprised if there wasn't confusion. If I went to my mind to try to explain this stuff, it would go, don't know.
Yeah. Again, send me some of that in the post. It's being at the hospital was just duality itself, because I could see so much unconsciousness, and it was pulling me down,
But can you reframe that? Like maybe you were able to see that unconsciousness within your own thought structure and other beings around you there, clearer than you ever have before, showing how much you are shifting in your definition of who you are, in your ability to live as that. Most people are, of course, through no fault of their own, so lost in their own thought structure that they have no idea they're lost. Here we are beginning to come out of that and beginning to see how we've been.
Yeah, that did occur to me, because I looked at and I thought they have no idea how much they lost. So,
and we wouldn't be able to recognize that we've been lost and still get lost apparently sometimes if we weren't coming out of it. It's important to kind of hold on to that recognition.
When you sometimes do meditations, you get an energetic kind of release by kind of allowing these feelings in the body to kind of go there with a curiosity and that sometimes, and just allow them to be. It's been hard because I got back and they just threw me out to 4 walls again. I thought, fuck that. Excuse me. God bless.
Thank you for sharing, John. I deeply appreciate it. I'm glad you're back home.
Thank you.
Take care.
No.
Thank you. Lean, hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yes, hello, Helen. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for your teachings. And your meditations have been very, very helpful and very inspiring.
Thank you.
Yeah, lately I've been experiencing much more peacefulness and calm in life. And also, especially, in fact, the last week especially, I've often noticed how the body was just, like you sometimes say, but I really noticed it, how the body was just doing things by itself.
Yeah,
like
it's a little weird at first, right?
And then also I was noticing a lot, especially this last week also, how in fact I often had to laugh out loud, because I could just see, I mean, before I could often sometimes see the thoughts and that it was not me, but now it was like coming up these thoughts, and I could just see how this thought it was someone, but it was not at all someone. It was quite funny to just constantly see you do this thing.
Yeah, there's a thought structure, and this interconnected web of thoughts is convinced it is actually a living entity. Like really convinced.
Yeah, it has something very funny.
Funny when you're coming
so
out.
That's really But it's not all the time, but it's like it seems to be much more often, and that's really great. And I also noticed next to that well, it also really spoke to me what you said today about cause and effect, because there's one subject which is like, yeah, very triggering,
Mhm.
and where I do not feel peacefulness at all. And it's okay if I briefly say what it's about? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, in January I met a man, and we had a very beautiful connection, like very, very beautiful. And then he lives in another continent, and because of his life circumstances, there's very little space and time to connect.
Mhm.
And I noticed that because of the situation, in fact, he tells me how much this means to him. So, you know, like he's telling me explicitly, but I constantly again like start to think like, oh, but he's rejecting me. He's not calling me, and I start to doubt myself and start to, and there's all kinds of drama coming up around it, like frustration and fear of being rejected.
Mhm.
And in fact, I'm not like, the situation is like the cause, or him, the situation, and I have not been focusing on the cause, but I see that I have been focusing on the effect, namely these emotions, and I've been trying to see them and feel them in the body and take care of them,
Mm.
because I thought, yeah, that's probably the best way to approach them. But from what you say today, yeah, I realize now that I've just been continuing this duality,
You flipped
cause
it
and
over,
effect.
right? Now you believe in the cause is inside. And if I change inside, this
Yeah,
thing outside, yeah.
yeah.
Because we all do that on the
That's what,
pathway. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And just the fact that you can see that is huge, isn't it? There's still
Mhm.
a division being subscribed to inside. And it might be more subtle, but still, I'm still trying to change
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
here so that out there, because I'm imagining them to be different, it can change. It's beautiful that you can see.
Yeah, and thank you. In fact, while I was listening to the other people talking, I was noticing that I was feeling nervous, like nervous to talk on camera, and I mostly feel this way. And so, in fact, suddenly I was
Me
thinking, oh,
too.
let's, yeah, yeah. But then I thought like, oh, let's practice this. And so I thought like, okay, I'm going to try to see this division. So I was looking at, okay, in fact, this is the effect is nervousness, and then the cause is there, the camera, and I was continuing to try to see cause effect, and then I noticed, in fact, that it started to calm down, this nervousness, because it seemed to come closer suddenly, like as if there was not so much division anymore.
Yeah. There's no one else to talk to, right?
Yeah, it was strange that it happened like that.
It's so good to kind of begin to recognize any problem I'm having anytime, anywhere, ever about anything. I must be having this cause and effect thing going on. Sometimes it's very subtle. But as you start to look for, is there actually a division? We so believe in it, right? The camera and the
Yeah.
phone or the computer, whatever it is totally different to me. And the other beings on the satsang are different to me, and on it goes.
Mhm.
If I don't say the right thing, they might think something of me, you know, and it goes on and on and on. You know, if I say the right thing, they might like me.
Yeah.
Both sides of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I noticed when this division was lessening, then also just felt like, oh, there isn't, like what you said, there is not really a threat, maybe.
Yeah. Reality is
Or just
obvious, right? Once we question that apparent division, reality can just come rushing in.
Mhm.
And even just the first time you question it, you experience, oh, this really isn't true. It's fine. It's okay.
Mm. And so can I then do it the same thing with this man and this situation is so triggering? I just keep on noticing like that I am seeing this division. I just notice I'm seeing cause and effect. I can meet it this way.
Yeah, absolutely. We want a healthy, wonderful relationship that mirrors how we begin to feel more and more about ourselves. Can we actually have that happen though, when we believe that we're separate to the person we're in the relationship with? That this person, their behavior is causing this or triggering inside this response. And for most beings in the world, that won't be a problem because they really still feel separate. But we've gone too far here in Satsang to still tolerate that kind of idea. And it starts to get really painful. That's the trigger if there is anything, right? It's not this person's behavior, not that we're condoning certain things or anything, but all I can ever do is look at the imaginary division between me and this other being and question if it's really true. And from there, you can begin to allow the outer world to reflect more this wholeness, this completeness, this peace, by giving us people and beings and things that also want to agree with our peace and our love and all of that. Beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wonderful to talk to you. Thank you. We'll finish with Pauline.
Thank you, Helen. I've had my hand up and then I put it down.
It was one of those yo-yo days, yeah.
Well, I had the answer. Well, put it this way. I think I have enough answer to sit with and contemplate, and what came through during the discussion. Having had years, I stopped blaming the outside circumstances, but I was really good at thinking, I've got to change the way I see things to make things.
When I'm awakened enough. Yeah.
That'll happen.
Yes. I might have done that for a few years, yeah.
The thing is, I came back up just to say, apart from the usual thank yous, because it's amazing to me, I can just listen to the videos again and again. It's something new each time. But I wanted to say thank you. I don't know who does your YouTube channel, your web page. They're so clearly and simply organized. It's so lovely because you go in there and you find just what you want. And I find it such a gift. So thank you.
It's wonderful you brought that up, because I am surrounded by wonderful beings who have skills that I could never have in my wildest dreams, at least in this body and mind. And it's just amazing. All of this has kind of just unfolded. And whenever we seem to need something, someone shows up with that skill. And it's like, okay, you know, it's just profound. And I do want to take a moment also to say thank you. We have a huge group of people who give their time, their skills, their energy, everything. And they do it just for the love of helping and for helping others, right? And it's beautiful. So thank you so much.
The result is brilliant, really.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant, wonderful.
Sometimes they show up before I even know I need them, right? And you go, okay, let's see what's going to happen here. Yeah. Thank you so much. Glad you got the resolution to your challenge as well. Yeah. Thank you. Wonderful to talk to you. Thank you. Okay. We'll leave it there for today. As I said, if you can make it live next week, we'll do some guided contemplation. We'll actually go through examples of this. There are already some videos on the channel. There's a playlist on YouTube of guided contemplations and a couple of other similar things. So if you want to get a head start on that, you can check them out. But we'll actually do it live. It's also the best way to show perhaps how it's much simpler than we think. And we did a little bit today also. So thank you so much. Do not try to understand what we've said today. Just let that understanding come forth. Believe me, I tried, as I'm sure you have. And it is better to let that understanding come from the inside rather than trying to figure it out with your mind. We all know how that goes. So thank you so much for being here with me. Namaste.